All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. We've got a few of y'all in here. All right, we've got Viviki in here. We're going to, just kind of get this going. I am waiting for. We're going to see if YouTube starts to read this. Okay, actually, YouTube is picking up the stream, so we are going to start streaming on YouTube very shortly. But before we do that, now y'all kind of got front row seats. So y'all, those of y'all who are here, okay, Alan's here, Kate's here. So if y'all want to go ahead and ask questions and kind of direct this thing, y'all do have an opportunity to kind of have, you've got front row seats. Now I'm going to take some questions from YouTube as well, but y'all have got front row seats. Okay. So let's see. We've got everything going. So I think we're good for that. And going from there, let's see. Okay, so going from that. All right. All right, so that okay. Think it's just you. I can hear. Let's see. So all right, so yeah, make sure to refresh your browser. Is everybody else good? Okay, so Megan, you feel like you're good here. All right, so we have. I think we're about ready to roll. We've got about 2 minutes until this kicks in. I got my Marco Learning shirt. Got my Marco Learning mug here. So we've got that going on. And so with that, I think we're about ready to go. How y'all doing? Now, remember, go ahead and just ask a question. Okay. Y'all put ask a question and I'll get to those questions first. Okay. So that's something just to keep in mind. Okay. So going from that, let's see. Okay. Okay, so let me get that going. All right, we've got this. Okay, big picture. I don't necessarily need that there. And all right. So I think we are all, we are just about all set. And just closing tabs, making sure I've got everything everything closed up. All right, and we got that. Just want to make sure I've got all the bandwidth. All right, thank you so much, Alan. All right, so good to see our folks here. And let's see, so all right, let's go ahead and get this going then. All right, just gotta. I've got, it's a little bit awkward here because I've only got like 1 foot that I can put weight on. Y'all notice the crutches there. Looks like I broke a bone in my foot over the weekend. So yeah, that's been, anyway. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, let me go ahead and get the YouTube going. All right. So, oh wait, actually, are we already on YouTube? Okay. Or have we started yet? Okay, so we've started so we're live on YouTube. Okay, did that happen? All right. So as far as that goes, those of you who are on YouTube, we have, are we on YouTube? I thought you had to press something for the YouTube stream to start going. So as far as that, we're having a bruh moment right now, officially. Okay, so we are on YouTube. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put this link there, crowdcast.io/Tom Richey, or actually you can go straight to this if you want to join our crowdcast and kind of have a front row seat. So, all right. So I guess, I didn't realize YouTube was already broadcasting that. I thought we were going to say something. Okay. So, hey, CBD. All right. So y'all can see me, hear me, all of that kind of go. All right, kind of go. I don't know what I'm saying there. All right, so Songhai Empire, this is an APUSH live review. Okay, so that's not going to go on here. But just, yeah, y'all just confirm in the chat on YouTube that that y'all can see and hear me. Somebody go ahead and just let me know y'all can see and hear me on YouTube. So CBD, you are telling me that that I can be heard on YouTube. All right, I just did not realize that. So I'm going to take some questions, from Crowdcast. These people will have like a front row seat, and those of you on YouTube, I'll take some of your questions as well. Now, the other thing that I want to let you know about is if you go to youtube.com Marco Learning, this is going to be about a 45-minute stream, and we're going to be, here for, till until about 8:45, 8:50. And then I'm going to move over to Marco Learning's channel. Okay, so I just want to make sure that everybody is aware of how to get there for the 9 o'clock stream. Okay, so as far as that, actually, okay, I want to make that there. All right, I want to see the screen. If you go to youtube.com/Marco Learning, you can go to Marco Learning's YouTube channel, which look at them pushing 10,000 subscribers. It would be a great Christmas present for Marco the dog if we could get his YouTube channel past 10,000 subscribers. So we are getting there. We've got barely over 500 people there. So with that, let's just go ahead and put that into the YouTube chat there, letting y'all know that, that's going to be happening at 9 p.m. tonight. So follow me on. Looks like Marco Learning is actually here. So Marco Learning's YouTube channel. Now, another resource that I'm going to bring out here is I've actually, this is an old period 3 review, isn't it? That is, where did there is a period 3 review thing that I've done, that I've put up, that I know that I put up before. Let's see, period 3, tomrichey.net. Let's see. So let me see where I actually put this. Okay, so tomrichey.net/blog. And so certainly I may have, so let's see. Now I've got one thing, like if you go to tomrichey.net/blog, I do have immigration review notes. You can download this in PDF format. I think this is a great thing as far as just getting, most of us have gotten through like Reconstruction at this point, or that's going to be your midterm, Civil War and Reconstruction. So at least brush up on some of the immigration history here. Remember that most immigration to the United States and to the British North American colonies in the United States is coming from Northwestern Europe. Now, very heavily from the British Isles, Germany, and Scandinavia. And actually, if you look at my ancestry DNA, like I think I was about 85% British Isles and about 8% French and about 5% Scandinavian. So, that kind of goes along with some of this, immigration you're seeing into North America at that point. Now, I am also a good bit Irish. I think I'm maybe about 20-30% Irish, something like that. So maybe not that much. I forget the exact numbers, but the Irish, remember, they're coming in the 1840s, and that's where you've got this first wave of nativism, which is directed at these Irish and German immigrants, largely because of their Catholic religion, that the United States very early on is overwhelmingly Protestant. So I would say that this is this would be a great resource as you're getting ready to go into exam season. But I would say the first page would be excellent as y'all are getting ready for this. Let's see, we've got Pilot Houston VR. I'm noticing you. Also, if you want to get noticed, make sure you're following @TomRichey on Twitter and Instagram. Okay, I'm going to do some shout outs for people who are following me on social media. Okay, so let's make sure that we're thinking about that as well. Okay, so that's something that you want to think about there. I will be doing some Instagram shout outs. Now, also Marco Learning will be doing some Instagram shout outs on their broadcast at 9. Okay, so at 9, make sure you're going to Marco Learning's channel. So I've sent y'all the link to that immigration handout, so I think that's going to be good for you. Now, another thing that I did this in May of last year. Okay, this is what I called it. Okay, let's, we want to be careful about this, but remember last year for the exam, cheat sheet. Okay, now this is something I don't want to encourage you to cheat, but it's something that I designed for last year's exam as something that is just a handy thing to kind of have with you as you're taking an exam. But it can also be something, although I designed it for the exam last year as something of a cheat sheet, a legal cheat sheet. I think this is something, if you're going through the so-called period 3 from the American Revolution through the election of Thomas Jefferson, I think this is something that could very well be helpful to you. Okay, so just go ahead and note there that we've got, I'm going to put that in the Crowdcast and in the YouTube. All right, so with that, let's go ahead and take a few questions from our folks at Crowdcast and going through there. So I've got 7 questions in the Crowdcast. Can you explain Jacksonian democracy and Jackson's presidency? Okay, which this is a great question. Hey James, how are you doing there? This is and we've got Raul. We've got a teacher here, and yeah, Unit 5. If you're getting through Reconstruction, that's technically like where people are supposed to be. Then again, a lot of times I say pacing is overrated. I mean, a teacher could be at the Progressive era, but if their students don't understand it, they really didn't get it. Whereas, somebody could be on Texas annexation right now. And if the students really get what they've gone over and they've done writing and all of that, that could be a good thing. So going from here, Jacksonian democracy, I think, is a great thing to think about, because today the Electoral College cast its votes. Okay, so Joe Biden has officially been elected as the 46th president of the United States, unless something happened at the Electoral College that I wasn't aware of. But I'm pretty sure that went over without a hitch. Okay, so the Electoral College voted today. Now, how is it that the members of the Electoral College get there? Okay, so when we're thinking about Jacksonian democracy, I'm going to pull up some slides here that aren't my newest, but at the same time, I think it kind of gets the job done. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about what is Jacksonian democracy. Now, so when we look at this, when we're looking at 1820, for example, the era of good feeling. Okay, so when we're looking at the era of good feeling in 1820, you basically had the members of Congress got together and they were all Republicans. If Jefferson were giving his first inaugural address in 1820, he'd be like, "We are all Republicans. We are all Republicans," instead of "we're all Federalists, we're all Republicans," and that sort of thing. But here, the members of Congress just got together and said, "James Monroe's doing a good job. Let's reelect him." Which I've got. This is a Marco Learning mug, I love AP Marco Learning mug. Check it out at the Marco Learning merch at Teespring, which you'll probably have a link to when you join our 9 o'clock broadcast. So with that, the people are not really directly involved in the process. Now, what's going on here is the traditional balloting for president, the way that the framers of the Constitution wanted to elect the president. Now, remember that the framers were not trying to create a democracy. The framers believed that democracy in and of itself, this 50% plus one with everybody having the same vote, that it's inherently corrupt, that it is subject to demagoguery, and it's subject to factions, dominating politics. So the framers wanted to stay away from, something. Now, they wanted the House of Representatives to have democratic elements, but when it came to electing the president, they wanted the election of the president to be separated from the people a little bit. And so you've got the voters, which a lot of these folks were property owners in the early republic. They elect the members of the state legislature. The members of the state legislature elect the presidential electors. And then the presidential electors from the several states get together and elect the president. And so what you see here is that originally the voters did not have a direct say in who these people are who are chosen to elect the president. Now, at the time of the 1820s, you start to see a lot of states in the 1820s and 1830s, which this is the system we have today. This is the system of the direct balloting for president, where the voters in a state, they go and they have an election for president, and whoever wins that Democratic election for president in that state, then then that slate of presidential electors will vote from that state for the president. And so as far as that, we see that this is happening during this period of Jacksonian democracy. And by 1836, only my state of South Carolina held on to the aristocratic state legislature choosing the electors. Now note, the Constitution doesn't say that there has to be a democratic election for president. It's just what the states do today, that the Constitution says that the legislature is in charge of the system of selecting electors. And so So from there, this is something that we're seeing this transition to direct balloting by the time that Jackson's out of office. Of course, you've got that election of 1824 that goes kind of chaotic, goes in the corrupt bargain. Now, Jacksonian democracy. A few things here. I would say belief in the common man. Okay, so first of all, the assumption here is that even people who don't own property, even people who don't have education, they are able to have a say in the government without everything just falling apart. Okay, so there's this belief that the common farmer and laborer and mechanic, as Jefferson called them, can participate in the in this government. Now, also universal white male suffrage. Now, of course, we could go back to the 1820s and we could tell them how terrible they are, that they only allowed white men to vote. But looking at this outside of the lens of presentism, when we look at how was it before this, before the age of Jackson, you just had white male property owners that were able to vote. So this is something that is definitely making some progress toward the universal suffrage that we have today. So belief in the common man, universal white male suffrage, regardless of any kind of property requirements. And then finally, popular campaigning. Okay, this is back when, don't use clip art in your slides, but this is kind of, I made this a long time ago. So popular campaigning, and this is something that, of course, we see the fruits of today. Like the founders would turn over in their grave if they saw the way that we elected presidents today, that there was a system of popular campaigning and, big, rallies and electioneering and all of this kind of stuff. Elections were originally just kind of a, you get the respectable property owning types together, they cast their ballot for the local aristocratic leader, and then there you go. So this is something where it also shakes things up, okay? Because Andrew Jackson is the first president to come from Jackson never met his father. Okay, Jackson was born in a log cabin in the frontier. He worked his way up. That's the other thing about Jacksonian democracy, is this belief in the so-called self-made man. So this is where, when people say that Andrew Jackson epitomizes Jacksonian democracy, what they're saying here is he epitomizes this self-made man who did his, who basically worked his way up. Okay, somebody who worked his way up from the from the bottom and became somebody. Okay, so Jackson is kind of emblematic here. Now, here's another thing that we want to note when we're talking about Arabella's question here, that Jackson, this is also part of his belief that his job is to make sure that elites are not creating barriers to entry for people who are not from the elite classes. So this is why Jackson is not a fan of the Bank of the United States, for example, which not only, as he sees it, is not in the Constitution, but he saw the Bank of the United States as preserving aristocratic privilege. Okay, it's preserving aristocratic privilege, and it is not allowing for equal opportunity to people who are, in this, in these situations. All right, AJ is here. That is awesome. So glad to see AJ over here from Virginia and all of those friends over there. So as far as that goes, can we go over major Civil War battles? Now, I will tell you that the military history of the Civil War is incredibly fascinating. I love going to a Civil War battlefield and learning like what happened here. A few years ago, I went to the Chancellorsville battlefield and, got to stand on the exact spot where Stonewall Jackson died, just exact spot where he was shot by his own men, and accidentally, friendly fire. But with that, Civil War battles themselves don't necessarily figure too heavily into this, but I will note a couple here, that one thing we want to note is, of course, the attack on Fort Sumter, which started the Civil War. Okay, so this is something where Abraham Lincoln, as a result, now this is where we want to think about this. A battle is not important in the sense of what happened in the battle, but maybe what happened because of it. Okay, so after the attack on Fort Sumter, Abraham Lincoln called for 75,000 troops for a 90-day enlistment to put down this rebellion against the authority of the United States. Now, of course, you go to the first Battle of Manassas or Bull Run, where it was expected that there was just going to be a quick end of the war. Like, this was just going to be a one battle thing. And after that battle, people knew, like, this isn't going to be a one battle thing. So one of the most important, I would say, is Antietam, because Antietam in September of 1862, this is where Robert E. Lee invades Maryland, okay, or raids Maryland. He's not, trying to take over, but he brings his army into Maryland. And George McClellan meets Robert E. Lee in battle at Antietam. And so this is where there is basically a tactical draw. Now, when we talk about tactics versus strategy in warfare, tactical just means on the battlefield. Okay, so tactically it was a draw. Now, strategically, it is seen as a Union win because, Robert E. Lee and the Army of Northern Virginia went back to Virginia. And at the same time, Robert E. Lee didn't achieve a victory, which he had achieved some victories before this. So Abraham Lincoln, now, first of all, for you war buffs, Antietam was the bloodiest single day of the Civil War. Not the bloodiest battle, but the bloodiest one-day battle. Gettysburg is the bloodiest battle, and a lot of people argue the most significant. Now, Antietam gave Abraham Lincoln the victory he needed in order to announce the preliminary Emancipation Proclamation. Now, the Emancipation Proclamation is going to be more important than any single Civil War battle, okay? Understanding how the Emancipation Proclamation, which authorized Union commanders in Confederate territory to free any slaves that they came across, okay? Any territories that were in rebellion against the United States. Now, Lincoln initially was hoping that this would be something that would, encourage the Confederacy to surrender. Because after all, if they're just fighting this war over slavery, maybe they'll surrender if they're doing this. So Lincoln is hoping that this will result in a surrender. Okay. Now, but then, as far as that goes with the Emancipation Proclamation, it takes effect in January of 1863. And this adds to, I wouldn't say it changes Lincoln's objective. Lincoln wanted to preserve the Union and put down what he saw as a rebellion against the authority of the United States. Now, as a necessary war measure, Lincoln says, I'm going to authorize as commander-in-chief Union commanders to free slaves as a necessary war measure. Lincoln didn't believe he had the power to free slaves in the abstract, but according to the rules of war, this is where we're starting to escalate from a limited war on Lincoln's part to preserve the Union into a total war that also, is really marshaling the resources of the North. Because at first, Lincoln is not going to, welcome here. CBD she has migrated from YouTube to the Crowdcast. All right, so excellent to see that. And so as far as that goes, the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln's still fighting to preserve the Union, but he's also, becomes interested in, while we're at it, let's go ahead and abolish slavery. Okay, so going from there, I would say that the twin battles of Gettysburg and Vicksburg, Gettysburg in Pennsylvania, which is Robert E. Lee's first tactical, decisive defeat. Lee pushes into Pennsylvania, hoping that a road win, for any of y'all who were into football, anybody can win at home, but if you can win on the road, that what Lee believed that a victory could do. Lee and the Confederacy believed that a victory in Pennsylvania could, one, possibly bring the Union to the peace table. Look, we're tired of fighting this war. Second, he was hoping that this would lead to international recognition for the Confederacy. Now, this is something, if we go back to the American Revolution, one of the most important things in the United States victory in the Revolutionary War was that that the United States achieved diplomatic recognition and received aid from France. Okay, so France recognized the United States and gave military and financial aid to the United States. And the United States was able to use this to win the war. Without French assistance, Cornwallis would not have been trapped at Yorktown. Now, I went back to the American Revolution here. Okay, so make sure we've got those straight. Now, in the American Civil War, the Confederacy never achieves international recognition. So Robert E. Lee's loss, defeat at Gettysburg, basically, put the Confederacy in a position with that and the Emancipation Proclamation, which was a great, Lincoln's basically pulling an Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's like, I have the moral high ground. He's like, don't try it, David. Don't try it, Jefferson Davis. I have the moral high ground. That's basically the Emancipation Proclamation, that it marginalizes the Confederacy in the eyes of Europeans, because Lincoln is recasting this war as, freedom versus slavery. And so going from, so as far as that, so Obi-Wan Kenobi, there we go, Arabella. And so as far as that goes, that this is something that is, that is just, so the Obi-Wan Kenobi, don't do this, don't do it, Jefferson Davis. Okay, so as far as that goes there, don't do it, Jefferson Davis. I have the moral high ground. Okay, so now Gettysburg, now Vicksburg, is something that I would say is significant because it's also July of 1863. Vicksburg, the capture of Vicksburg by Ulysses S. Grant, is something that leads to the Union takeover of the Mississippi. Now, this completes or makes progress toward the so-called Anaconda Plan. Now, remember, like my anaconda don't. My anaconda don't. No, you don't have to know that song. That song's not going to be on your exam. But Nicki Minaj is not going to be on the exam. And so, but at the same time, the Anaconda Plan, this was General Winfield Scott's initial strategy for the North. Okay, yeah, that song, Alan, is not on the exam. I don't like, so you wish Nikki was on the exam, but she's not going to be on the exam. Okay, but the Anaconda Plan was basically that the Union was going to win the war by a naval blockade, capturing the Confederate capital of Richmond, Virginia, and taking the Mississippi River, dividing the Confederacy and restoring Union control of the Mississippi River. Because that's something that, now Sir Mix-a-Lot might be on the exam, but Nicki Minaj is not going to be. So with that, the Confederacy, when you think about this, like when people talk about economic motives for the Civil War, certainly when you think Jefferson had purchased Louisiana to get New Orleans, to get free navigation of the Mississippi, was the Union about to let the Confederacy control this, the biggest water, the mouth of the biggest waterway in North America? Hardly. Oh, I got some hiccups. All right. So as far as that goes, understanding the battles are not really going to be at the forefront. Okay, so Raylan, can we review periods 3 through 5? You've basically asked me with this question, Raylan, can we review from the French and Indian War to the end of Reconstruction? That, my friend, is not a question. Let's go show some love for, for YouTube over here. Saeed and Dawn and Evan, good to see y'all there. Okay, so what them crutches for? Okay, I actually, they are for me. I hurt my foot over the weekend, and it looks as if I'm going to be on crutches for some weeks. So that's something, but remember, tell your friends to come join us. Also, it's probably about time for me to do a few Instagram shout outs. Okay, so remember, at Tom Richey on Twitter and Instagram, let's do some shout outs here. Okay, so what have we got here? One and only Paris, Kajile is not here. Let's see who we've got here. Okay, so we've got just a few people. but at Tom Richey on Twitter and Instagram, and I'll go through and do some shout outs if anybody else joins us. Now, some of y'all are probably already, already with me over there. And so with this, ha ha ha, looks like Emily is over here. So excellent. So with that, let's go ahead and see what's going on. We'll do some social media shout outs later on. Thank y'all for the well wishes, but well wishes. Okay, so leading to the civil, talked about philosophical chaos. Would you mind going over it? Possibly going to be on our final. Now that sounds a little bit deep there, but with that, okay, the Compromise of 1850. So Caleb, when we talk about the Compromise of 1850, we want to note that the context of the Compromise of 1850 is the Mexican-American War. Okay, so the Mexican-American War, the annexation of Texas and the Mexican-American War, it's a turning point. Okay, so 1845 to 48. Okay, so 1845 Texas annexation, 1846 to 48. That is, that's the Mexican-American War. And so this territory comes in, okay? We're looking at the Compromise of 1850. You see that you've got a group of people that are gaining prominence known as free soilers, okay? So let's go ahead and take a little look here. I'm going to project my screen here, and let's go ahead. And actually, you know what? Andrea, however you go by that, it's a written test. We had a question in the Crowdcast that goes right along with the question in the YouTube. So we've got a harmony of interest. We'll let the invisible hand work here, right? And so as far as that, we hope that Francis is not too sad, okay? So with this, what we want to note here is the Mexican-American War is, the bigger thing here in terms of manifest destiny, okay? Manifest destiny is kind of the big picture thing that's going on in the background. That is like an underlying cause, is this American belief that we are basically destined to go all the way to the Pacific Ocean. Now, Texas annexation by joint resolution of Congress in 1845 after James K. Polk's election, but before he takes office, we see that Texas is annexed. That is the immediate cause of the Mexican-American War. And we've got this disputed territory here because Texas, basically, when they got their independence from Mexico, they got Santa Anna, the president of Mexico, the general, president, dictator, whatever you want to call him. They got him to sign a treaty that said that the border of Texas is the Rio Grande. Okay, so it goes all the way to the Rio Grande River, depending on what language. So you've got, you've got here this border that this is the border of Texas. Now, the Mexican Senate said, nope, this is the border of Texas. Okay, so you've got all this disputed territory in the between the United States and Mexico now that they've let Texas into the Union. And so with that, now you've also got some Anglo settlers in California. Okay, now when we talk about Anglo settlers, we're talking about generally white English-speaking settlers who initially settled in Texas in the 1820s, but now we've got Anglo settlers in the in California that are proclaiming this California Republic. And so the United States not only is thinking like, let's stake our claim to Texas, but let's think about this land here that would really look good as part of the United States, as part of our manifest destiny. Now, the Mexican-American War is one of those wars that the battles don't really play a role in it. And I mean, as far as for APUSH, it's just the United States invades Mexico and has a pretty decisive victory. Okay, so the occupation of Mexico City by the United States Army, and then you have the Mexican Cession, which is in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo. Now, if you have not seen, okay, if you have not seen the Jimmy Fallon Gadsden Purchase, do yourself a favor and watch the Jimmy Fallon Gadsden Purchase. It is really, really funny, okay? So as far as that kind of stuff there, we've got the Mexican Cession. And the question here is, now I've got a lecture on the Compromise of 1850 and a rap. Okay, so if you type in Compromise of 1850 rap, you can hear my Compromise of 1850 rap. I'm not a rapper, by the way. But as far as that goes, that when we're looking at this here is, okay, what are we going to do with the Mexican Cession? And that is the question here. Now, the terms are changing a little bit because there's this new anti-slavery movement, this newer anti-slavery movement known as free soil. And these are people who oppose the expansion of slavery into the West, not necessarily slavery in Alabama, but certainly not slavery in California or slavery in Kansas or Nebraska. This is very similar to when y'all get to the Cold War, you're going to learn about the policy of containment. The United States never, never has a policy that we're going to attack the Soviet Union. Even though Ronald Reagan made a funny joke one time on a hot mic, he didn't realize that that it was going already, and he said that, ladies and gentlemen, I've signed legislation that'll outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes. So as far as that goes, we go into this that. Reagan made a joke about it, but the United States never tried to attack the Soviet Union. The containment policy said basically communism where it is not a problem, but when communism tries to expand, that is a problem. And so when we look at abolitionism, you see where the abolitionists like William Lloyd Garrison, Frederick Douglass, David Walker, they want to get rid of slavery everywhere. They want to get rid of slavery now. They have moral reasons for doing this. Now, like abolitionism, free soil is an anti-slavery movement. Okay, people who are free soilers are generally against slavery. But what they want to do on a policy level is stop the westward expansion of slavery. And this is more racist and economic. Now, this is not to say necessarily that everybody who was a free soiler was a racist, but there certainly is a lot of racist propaganda in free soil literature. Okay, so it depends on what free soil you're talking to, but they're definitely not saying like, oh, we don't like slavery for moral reasons. They don't want to live around black people. They don't want to compete with slave labor. They want a white West, so to speak. Now, because this is rooted largely in racism and economics, this is a lot more palatable to a lot more white Northerners than abolitionism, which is something that is seen as marginal and something that would destroy the national economy. Got to remember that before the Civil War, for all practical purposes, the Southern economy was the national economy. When you're looking at this, when you're looking at, for example, Henry Clay's American system, okay, Henry Clay's American system is something that counts on Southern cotton in order to go to Northern factories. So if we're going to think about like going back into, let's see, is this in this one or that one? Yeah, Henry Clay's American system. All right, this is one of those things that basically this is how we're going to build a national economy. Part of this is Southern cash crops. Okay, so so with this Southern cash crops that would then go to Northern factories, and this is Henry Clay's vision for this national economy. So destroy the Southern economy, you destroy what's being built from the national economy. Now remember as well that Southern states accounted for most of the exports, okay, which meant that Southern states were paying most of the taxes, which were collected at that time primarily through tariffs. And that's where, we see the impetus for the nullification crisis and why the South tended to appreciate low tariffs for revenue only rather than Henry Clay's American system, which what I think about all the time when I think about Henry Clay's American system, nip. Okay, we're going to nip it. Now, we could say we're going to pin it, okay, like pin the tail on the donkey, but the only problem is that pin can be spelled two ways. So I would not do pin because you would be thinking, is it P-E-N or is it P-I-N? And so the American system, nip, national bank, internal improvements, and the protective tariff. Okay, so the the national bank, internal improvements, protective tariff. Now this is something that is, of course, this is something that never really gets fully implemented in Henry Clay's lifetime. Okay, but the American system is something worth noting here. Now, after, during the Mexican-American War, David Wilmot, who was a free soil Democrat from Pennsylvania. Now, free soil is at first, you're going to have Democrats and Whigs who are free soil, that this is going to eventually be something that is going to divide the Whig Party and the Democratic Party to an extent, because the Republican Party, when it's organized, is going to include some free soilers who were formerly members of the Democratic Party. So going from there, the Wilmot Proviso said that there will be no slavery in the Mexican Cession. Now, or you could say there will not be slavery in the Mexican Cession. So, now, it passed the House, not the Senate, okay? And so passed the House, not the Senate. And, but really, even though it didn't pass, this was a line in the sand drawn by the Free Soilers, okay? A line in the sand drawn by the Free Soilers who are saying that we're not going to do this anymore where we're admitting like a free state for a slave state, free state, slave state, all of that kind of stuff there, okay? And so this is the backdrop for the Compromise of 1850, kind of a shake and bake operation with Henry Clay and Stephen Douglas, okay? So with that, we get into the Compromise of 1850. The context is the Mexican-American War. Thank y'all, all NYO and S. Kelly 818 for the Instagram follows. Thank y'all for that. All right. So with that, the context is the Mexican War, the Mexican-American War, and what are we going to do with this? So the Compromise of 1850, it starts when California, they petition to come into the Union as a free state, as one large free state, okay? And so from there, there are Southern congressmen who are like, nope, 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 we want, okay? So as far as that goes, that what we want to do is to divide it. What Southern congressmen say is, why does California have to come in as a massive free state? And so there's resistance to this. And in order to get, some, some support from enough Southern congressmen, okay? So in order to get some, some support for some Southern congressmen, they say, well, what we're going to do here is we're going to have a new fugitive slave law, okay? So in order to get some support, because what was going on here is that there is the Fugitive Slave Act of 1793 was not being strongly enforced. It counted on the states, okay? It counted on the states to cooperate with each other. So basically, if a slave catcher, went to Wisconsin or something like that and was, demanding that a slave be returned, they would be at the mercy of the state officials. And the state officials, because of, so the state officials, because of a growing, a growing dislike for slavery, they were not cooperating. So the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850 was a stronger fugitive slave law, which put the federal government in charge of recovering runaway slaves. Now, note here that this is going to be the most controversial part of the Compromise of 1850. Now, also, I'm going to note here that I've got some on my website. I've got a lecture on this, Compromise of 1850 lecture notes, and you can go there to you see over here, Compromise of 1850 lecture notes, for some of y'all who like to read. Some people do well reading, and so good evening, those of you saying good evening to me, I appreciate that. And here's something something from here, and let's make sure that everybody is is getting that. All right, so now the Populist Party, some of y'all are getting a little bit ahead here, okay? Andy, glad I could help you last year, okay? So going from there. All right. So, we have those two things, okay? I like to divide it. We don't remember things in fives. So I think California's a free state, stronger fugitive slave law. We bring those in as a pair. Now, the next two have to do with the Mexican Cession. So popular sovereignty in the Mexican Cession. This is where Stephen Douglas is starting to get on the map here as a proponent of popular sovereignty. Instead of deciding whether the Mexican Cession will be free territory or slave territory, which the Free Soilers are not ready, they are not going to allow there to be territory open to slavery. So let's let the settlers vote on the status of slavery in the Mexican Cession. Now, How are you going to get some free soilers to vote for this? Well, we're going to get Texas to surrender some of their land claims. There was a dispute between Texas and the federal government about, about the borders of Texas. And the federal government, whenever there's a dispute, they can either try to use force or they can use money. In this case, they end up using money, and Texas gives up its western land claims, including the city of Santa Fe, to the New Mexico territory in return for $10 million. Okay. That this was a lot of money back then. Take my word for it. Okay. Today it's like $10 million. I can make that in like 5 seconds. But back then that was a lot of money. They had a lot of war debt left over. So Texas is like, okay, fine. We'll give up Santa Fe and the western land claims in return for $10 million. All right. So those two, the reason I like to group these two together is because you've got settlers in the, you've got the Mexican Cession. These both have to do with settling things within the Mexican Cession. Finally, the fifth one, while we're at it, let's abolish the slave trade in Washington, D.C. Now, this addresses concerns of Northerners that, it's just Northerners don't want to be around slave auctions. They, it's embarrassing when foreign visitors are coming in and seeing slave auctions. So it gets rid of that, but it allows, DC slaveholders to keep their slaves and Southern congressmen to bring their body servants into Washington, D.C. with them. So they abolished the slave trade in D.C., but slavery remains legal. I believe it was 1862. I was actually during a tutoring session. I offer online tutoring through my website, if any of y'all are interested in that, that abolishing the slave trade. Now, slavery was abolished in Washington, D.C. during the Civil War, I think either in 1862 or 1863. All right, Sonono _49. Thank you for that. And Leah, Leah Mitchell, okay, for the recent Instagram follow. Thank y'all so much for that. All right, so going from there, we see that these are the provisions here. I like to put these in 2, 2, and 1. That's how I remember it. Then you see this is what it looked like before, and then this is what it looks like after. Before, after, before, after, before, after. Okay, so we see that California is admitted as a free state, not one slave state, one free state, but as one large free state. Then we have these territories created, Utah and New Mexico, and then we see that Texas, everything's bigger in Texas, they say, but in this case, Texas is not bigger. So that's something that you'll want to note there. Now, this puts Stephen Douglas on the map. This is Henry Clay's last compromise. Calhoun might have been racist as all get out, but the guy was, you can't call the guy stupid. He said, like, Calhoun made a speech or had a friend of his read a speech because he was literally dying. And so, yeah, I mean, if Calhoun in 1850 has got like, you're texting him and he's got like this whole like, key smash and it's like literally dying, like he's not laughing, like he's literally dying. Like he came into the Senate like covered in blankets, and one of his colleagues gave a speech where he said that if the Compromise of 1850 passes, I see secession and possibly civil war as the result in about 10 years. And he had it right on there. Okay, so he said that basically you can start the clock ticking at 10 years if this compromise goes through, because it's something that's not going to last. And so, it was almost like some kind of prophetic utterance or something like that. But Henry Clay was the architect here. Daniel Webster provoked a great deal of ire from his constituents. He gave what was called the 7th of March speech. Now, Webster was personally against slavery. He'd been a member of the American Colonization Society, but he wasn't an abolitionist. And he was from Massachusetts, which this is where they published The Liberator. So in the 7th of March speech, Daniel Webster, POV Northerner, okay, POV New Englander, Massachusetts, coming from one of the most fervently anti-slavery states in the country, that was a hotbed for abolitionist sentiment. Daniel Webster said, the abolitionists are good people. They mean well, but they're doing more harm than good. Webster said, coming from a Northern POV, that he said when it comes to the fugitive slave crisis, controversy, he said that the North is wrong, the South is right. Now, here's another thing we have to think of about Webster. Webster's been around a while. He came from that, nationalistic generation of the War of 1812. Webster was also a lawyer. He was one of the greatest lawyers of his generation. So for Webster, it's like he has his personal opinions about slavery, but then he's also looking at the letter of the law because he's a lawyer. So when you do point of view analysis on Webster's 7th of March speech, it gets pretty deep. Now, the reaction, his constituents in Massachusetts got so upset, he ended up stepping down from the Senate to take a job as, I believe, Secretary of State, if I'm not mistaken. So that speech ended up being something that, did not go over well with his constituents, but his purpose was to try to get the sections to compromise and to persuade Northerners that, going along with the Fugitive Slave Act was a good idea in order to get this compromise between the sections that was going to, hopefully preserve the Union for a long time, but, didn't end up doing that. So, Compromise of 1850, an important episode there. And we also are getting to the point where you have this, the 1850s are going to be tumultuous. Okay, tumultuous. Yeah. And this is something that's interesting. Yeah, with the Compromise of 1850, CBD, you're absolutely right. You've got kind of like the last dance of the old Warhawks that, like Clay and Calhoun, remember, they had kind of come on the stage in the War of 1812. So yeah, Webster, Clay, and Calhoun were all part of this more like nationalistic, this more nationalistic generation that thought that, it's good to have compromises in order to, preserve, the Union. But at the same time, the generation after them, they did not have that, nationalistic memory of the War of 1812 and the Battle of New Orleans, America, they didn't have that same kind of attachment. They had grown up in an environment where, sectionalism was a way of life. And so this is something that after the Compromise of 1850, the political climate in the United States changes quite a bit, okay, and gets a lot more, volatile, to say the least. So going from there, I'm going to remind everybody, that we are going to be broadcasting. I'm going to be broadcasting, I believe John's going to be over there at the Marco Learning stream, and that's going to be at 9 o'clock. So that's going to be in just a few minutes. Make sure to go to youtube.com/Marco Learning. Let's see if we've been able to make a dent in that 9.44. Let's see what it says now. Still 9.44. Okay, we want some more subscribers there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go over to Marco Learning, subscribe, and there will be a broadcast coming up shortly. I think that Marco Learning may be in the chat. Is there a direct link to the upcoming Marco Learning stream? Okay. Oh wow, Obi-Wan Kenobi is actually here with us. All right. So good to see. As we were talking about Abraham Lincoln. Don't do it, Jefferson Davis. I have the moral high ground. So with that, you're worried. Okay. Let's see. So, again, the crutches, it looks like I'm going to get an x-ray tomorrow. It looks like I broke a bone in my foot over the weekend. It should heal fine. It's one of those things like it's the fifth metatarsal that leads to the pinky or whatever. So yeah, I'm okay. The crutches are going to be a temporary thing for me. But I'll probably be, putting my feet up during the break and taking your Netflix recommendations and that sort of thing. Okay. Yeah. Hello there, Noah. Oh, they did. Yeah. So hello there, General Kenobi. All right. So with that, remember to go to youtube.com/Marco Learning. You may even be able to click on, okay, so we've got it now to 9.45. Okay, so we've got a few more folks over here, so I'm glad to see that. So ladies and gentlemen, y'all go ahead and start migrating over here. I'm going to terminate this stream. I am watching The Mandalorian, ready for that, season finale coming up on Friday. So those of you with questions, bring them to the Marco stream and stay tuned. Okay, stay tuned. Put your notifications on because we're going to be doing some more things like this as we go into the spring. So best of luck to y'all in your midterms, semester finals, all of that kind of stuff. and it is always a pleasure, ladies and gentlemen.